And joining us now is Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon. Thank you so much, Senator, for being with us. So the Fed is now likely going to have to raise rates even higher to deal with inflation. A soft landing, as they say, any kind of landing is going to be very, very tricky. Most economists think we are heading into that recession. What really can the president do?
Well, I can tell you that the raising those interest rates is going to have a huge impact on the affordability of homes, which back home in Oregon, the two big things that are hitting people are gas and home prices. And so I'm really concerned about that interest rate and the cost of homes being driven up at the same time that rental rates are going up. You know, the president laid out in his speech to the AFL-CIO just an hour or so ago action in 6 areas to take on inflation. But the only action that really exists on gas is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and then lobbying countries like Saudi Arabia to produce more oil, put it on the world market. And those things just aren't going to have the huge impact that's needed. That $5 gas sign, $6 gas sign, it is just stunning to ordinary Americans. And the president has pretty limited power to change that.
And you've been, very concerned in the past. We've talked about this in past years, about the human rights issues in Saudi Arabia. But now the president is trying to repair that relationship after being very tough on them over the Khashoggi killing, declassifying that CIA intelligence report, which did hold the crown prince responsible for that hit squad and that brutal murder. And now they're trying to make amends. And they've been really, trying very hard to get this meeting, which the Saudis were playing hard to get. So to get them to pump more oil, where do you stand on all this?
It's all about oil, and I noticed that the White House made the point of saying we're happy to accept his invitation, if you will, as if this initiative was coming from Saudi Arabia. It's an ugly moment. I hate to think of the moment when he has to shake his hand, MBS's hand, and because they are horrendous on human rights. There are things that the White House can do in light of their decision of the importance of going there on this economic basis related to oil. One is to meet with human rights activists before he goes, those particularly from the Middle East and particularly related to Saudi Arabia, and then to make sure that he raises a human rights agenda as part of this trip to really push for the release of civil society activists who have been locked up, to release dissidents who have been locked up, to lift some of the travel bans that have been imposed on Saudis, to really come down significantly and clearly about transnational oppression, where they're, like Khashoggi is the biggest symbol of that, but where they really press the families for to penalize them for the advocacy of Saudi citizens overseas, and certainly to push for a continuation of the ceasefire in Yemen. So on human, there's issues the president needs to take to the table. We know he's going there for oil, but there's other really important human rights issues he needs to push hard on.
And on Ukraine, the president is also saying today that he's working to try to get Ukrainian wheat and grain exports out by building silos on the borders and taking it out by train, but that the railroad gauge is a problem in getting it to Europe. Those exports, are now really hitting hard in Egypt, in Morocco, in sub-Saharan Africa, and that's also going to press on food prices here, too.
Yeah, absolutely. He talked about food. He talked about 20 million tons of grain that's locked up inside Ukraine and the importance of getting out. This is not going to be an easy thing to accomplish. The whole world food economy is reverberating. The U.S. is feeling the impact, but think of the very poor countries that depend on those grain exports. That it's not an issue of price, it's an issue of starvation. So we need to do all we can to help get that Ukrainian grain out. Difficult. It's the right objective. Difficult to accomplish. I'm glad the president's team is focused on it.
A quick question on the China tariffs. It's one of the things that they're talking about. There's a debate inside the White House as to whether to lift those tariffs on China, which might help inflation. Where do you come down on that?
I think we need to be very careful here. The president, of course, speaking to the unions, he's talking about made in America. When you have goods that are being produced in some cases, with slave labor, though we've tried to tackle that with the law that Marco Rubio and I worked to get passed. But different labor standards, certainly different environmental standards, it undermines American manufacturing. And we have to take, especially as we rebuild our energy economy, that rebuilding our energy economy has to be associated with good American paying jobs, good union jobs, with made in America and with energy independence. And so the president has to be very careful not to undermine those objectives by turning on a kind of the opportunity to completely undermine American manufacturing. Today, he was talking about having created 600,000 American manufacturing jobs. A lot of that good work can be undone quickly by opening our economy to companies that play by completely different rules.
Boy, a lot on his plate going into these midterms. Quick question about guns. Do you think it's realistic to expect them to pass, the Senate to pass the gun safety bill by the July 4th recess?
It is possible. It is the case that the Republicans involved in this do not want Cornyn, Senator Cornyn of Texas, who's pushing on. He doesn't want to draw this out. And the package they've put together, I mean, there's basically kind of 4 core gun safety issues: the closer review of purchases of rifles by those under 21, taking action against straw purchasers more aggressive, the red flag laws to remove guns from people who are in a state of high risk, closing the boyfriend loophole. And then investments in school safety, mental health through community centers and mental health school programs. So it's a pretty substantial list of modest measures. I mean, no one's thinking about this as a law that Chris Murphy would write, but Senator Murphy laid out the principle that he knows that the law he would write cannot pass. It's time for us to get what we can get in agreement in partnership with the Republicans. And I think that's a really strong list, probably more than most of us thought could be accomplished. And so let's seize the moment. Let's get it passed. Senator Cornyn says he wants to do it quickly. Leadership is pushing for actual draft language to be written by our legislative council by Thursday. That's 2 days from now. So I'm hoping we can keep it on a really fast track before the normal forces that seek to unravel this can gain momentum.
Well, a lot going on there. Jeff Merkley, Senator, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.